Hi YouTube, this is Evie. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing another viewer suggested topic, and that is going to be how to introduce a partner to kink. Now, I don't remember who suggested this topic originally, but I have heard it from a couple of people, so if you are one of the ones who suggested it, please comment down below. Awesome, thank you. This is a great idea for a video. I actually have already filmed this video before, but I wasn't really happy with the way that it came out, so today I am refilming it. Now, I know that I can be a little bit rangy on this particular subject, having filmed it before, so I would, get a snack, get somebody to cuddle with, get a comfortable seat, because this could be a pretty long video, and just hopefully you enjoy it, hopefully you find it helpful, and I will just go ahead and get started. So, number one is going to actually be do your research. This is sort of the first pre-step to introducing your partner to kink. Make sure that you know as much as you can about BDSM, about kink. Figure out why you're into BDSM, what elements of BDSM that you're interested in. Do research on points. Figure out, how to explain to your partner certain things, like maybe if they think that BDSM is abusive, figure out a way to be able to explain to them and give examples of how it's not. Figure out how BDSM interacts with feminism, just sort of anticipate any sort of question that your partner may have in a discussion about BDSM and do research about it. Knowledge is always going to be power, and if you are the one who is going to be introducing a partner to kink for the very first time, you want to make sure that you know as much as you can going into that conversation, so that way there's no really any sort of awkward pauses, or you don't have to just pause and go like, I don't know about something. It's just generally going to go a lot smoother if you already have a lot of background knowledge about the subject when you're introducing it to a partner. Now, the second point is actually the first step to introducing a partner to kink, and that is going to be just testing the waters. You don't really want to jump completely off the deep end and start having really long, in-depth discussions about kink if you don't really know what that person's sort of preconceptions about BDSM and kink are. I would maybe approach the subject by asking them what they know about it, maybe talk about some things in popular media recently that have happened that are related to BDSM, so like Harley Quinn and Joker's relationship in the Suicide Squad movie, 50 Shades of Grey, any sort of movies that are on Netflix that have BDSM as an element to them, or that talk about kink and kink lifestyles. Just generally find a way to subtly bring up the topic without necessarily outing yourself as being into BDSM. Now, this conversation is going to tell you one of two things about your partner. One, they are curious about BDSM, they think it's interesting, they just generally have either a positive or neutral opinion about BDSM, or number two, which is the one you don't want to hear, and that's the one they think BDSM is abusive, they think it goes against feminism, they just generally have a negative opinion about it and aren't really open to learning more about the subject. Now, it's important to know at this particular phase what your partner thinks, because it's going to influence how the rest of the conversation goes. If your partner is just 100% opposed to BDSM, it's a completely non-negotiable thing from there, completely set in stone, the fact they think it's abusive or wrong or against their religion or something like that, you're really not going to be able to continue the conversation on any farther. Now, if BDSM is something that's really important to you, it's a really integral part of your life, and it's something that you're really, really serious about introducing into the relationship, you may want to consider if you want to continue this relationship as it is. Now, hopefully that won't be the case, and instead you will have a partner who is curious, or at the very least has sort of a more positive opinion about BDSM. Now, the third step is going to be the first time you're really actually introducing your interest in kink to a partner. Make sure, you don't have to make it sound like super serious. You don't have to be like, I need to talk to you about something, or like, I have something very serious to say. Just make sure, like, I have something important that I want to bring up, and I want to make sure that we have time for a good discussion, like when would be good for you. Make sure it's a time when you're not going to be like really stressed out or you have a bunch of other commitments. Make sure you set aside like an hour or two to have a conversation, because you never really know how long something like this is going to take. It could be a 15-minute conversation. It could be 3 hours. You don't really have a way of knowing until you actually start talking about it. But generally, setting aside a lot of extra time to actually have this conversation is going to make the conversation go a lot better, because you're not going to feel rushed and you're not going to feel stressed out about it. Now, this is really a good time to bring up exactly what all of your kinks are and exactly what you like about BDSM. I would say that for a later conversation, during your first initial conversation about BDSM, just sort of go over what all the terms mean if you're not really familiar with it, sort of introduce to them, why you're interested in kink in general, what about it is important to you in general, what about it intrigues you in general. This is also a good time to fight any initial misconceptions that they might have about BDSM. Make sure you can lay a very solid groundwork. Now, also make sure that this is not a one-sided discussion. You don't want to be ranting to your partner. You don't want to have like a speech prepared, nothing like that. You want to make sure that it is an open dialogue, not just a rant. Make sure you leave room in the conversation for your partner to ask questions, and make sure you're also proactively asking them questions as well. So if you have a good basic framework of what BDSM is and what BDSM means to you, and you understand, why you're curious about it, but also why your partner is curious about it, you may also find that your partner has secretly been kinky all along this whole time, and you both just never noticed it, and that's great. And this is the point where you can move on to number 4 or stage 4 or whatever it is, and that's when you actually start to specifically talk about kinks. What kinks are you interested in? Are you interested in pet play? Are you interested in DDLG? Are you interested in rope? Are you a dominant? Are you a submissive? Are you a switch? Talk about what roles interest you. Talk about how you might want to incorporate this into your relationship. Is it something you want to be 24/7? Is it something that you just want to do in the bedroom? Is it something that's going to be as often as possible or just periodically? Make sure that you are both as much on the same page as you possibly can be about where exactly you want to take BDSM in your particular relationship. Now, if you are both complete and total novices to BDSM and you really don't know anything about power exchange and you really don't know anything about consent or limits or like how to discuss those things, I have a couple of other videos that you might want to watch first as well. And if you are complete novices, and I know this is going to be really hard, but again, don't jump completely off the deep end with your first scene. Take baby steps. You have time in your relationship to be able to explore this with a partner. There's no reason why you can't slowly work up to something rather than just like completely going all out the first time, because honestly, that's going to be really overwhelming, and most of the time, it's probably not going to go very well. And that's sort of my 5th point, which is taking baby steps and actually do a scene together. Again, like I just said, you don't need to go completely full out. You don't need to try and incorporate like all of your kinks into one. It doesn't need to be like hours long, but just have sort of a short initial scene that's going to be introducing BDSM and kink to your dynamic. Now, once you've actually had this scene and you've talked about consent and you've talked about limits and you've had all those really good important conversations, take a step back and move on to number 6, which is reevaluating. Have a conversation with your partner once you've actually done a scene together and incorporated kink into your lifestyle. Did they like it? If they did like it, what specifically? If they didn't like it, what specifically didn't they like? Take time to evaluate where you're at. Maybe it turns out that your partner is really into it and wants to go like completely full steam ahead, but it could also be the case that your partner is apprehensive, or maybe you're apprehensive. You're not really sure if this is something you want to continue to do, or it didn't meet up to your expectations for some way. If that's the case, take a step back, maybe take a couple of weeks of a break, slowly introduce it again, maybe try a different scene, or just, change whatever parameters were bothersome the first time around and just see how it goes that time. Now, after experimenting with a short scene, if that goes well, that's awesome. I would say you are ready for the last step, which is number 7, I believe, and that is going to be incorporating BDSM into your lifestyle and figuring out how to set up more full long-term scenes. I would also recommend at this point to get involved with FetLife or get involved with your local community. Ask questions to other people that you may know who are involved with lifestyle. Just keep growing as a partner. Keep having good discussions about what exactly you do and don't like about your scenes. Now, let's say, for example, that you have a partner who is really, really into something that you're not into, or you're really, really into something and your partner partner's not. That can be really, really tough to deal with, I know, and it's hard to deal with rejection on that level with a partner, but you do have to make sure that you're not violating the consent of your partner, and always be careful to not push anything on your partner. You don't want to end up in a situation where you're violating somebody's consent because you were like really, really into pet play and your partner really, really is not. Like, that is a bad situation. Don't do that. You should never ever force kink on a partner who doesn't want it. There are so many people out there on the internet and in real life who have kinks like yours, and if it turns out that maybe your partner isn't into it like you are, there are so many other avenues that you could be pursuing in order to actually be able to express that kink with somebody who has a mutual interest in it. And that's really all I have to say about this subject. The way that you approach a situation with a partner and the way that you approach a delicate topic like this with a partner is, of course, going to depend on the nature of your relationship. As always, it is very important to have an open, communicative relationship with your partner before engaging in BDSM. So if you don't have that and you don't feel comfortable in general talking with your partner about things, you may want to take a step back and figure out if BDSM is something that's going to actually enhance your relationship and be a healthy, good part of that relationship. It is really, really hard to have a good BDSM if you are in a relationship with somebody where you're not able to communicate well and you're not able to understand each other well. BDSM is not going to help that kind of situation. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to see more. I do make videos twice a week. If you have any video suggestions, comments, or questions, please feel free to leave them down below. And until I see you next, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.